against a really good team on the road, you obviously have to take the ball, which I thought we did a much better job. And then you've got to be able to make some plays and make shots. We shot the line uncharacteristically poor tonight than what we have all year. Credit to Maryland in terms of they made things more difficult for us. They made some shots.
They made some shots. Greg Gard brings us back. Drew and KB from the all-new Iron Jock Studios, built by Reamer Remodel. Happy to be joined by the voice of the Badgers, who was courtside last evening for that exciting game in College Park. It is Matt Lepay, and Matt Lepay is brought to us by Ridgetop Exteriors, the epitome of expertise and reliability in home exterior solutions. Get started at ridgetopexteriors.com. Matt, how you feeling? You jet lagged at all? You good?
No, I'm good. By the way, I don't know if you saw this, if you were watching the game. Our location was right by the Wisconsin bench. I don't know. I was telling Billy and Armin this. Brian Butch had this like mammoth soft pretzel and then a barrel of popcorn that he's stuffed into. You guys know this as veteran broadcasters. I try to tell him, never, ever eat popcorn right before you go on the air.
No, you're going to get a dry mouth.
But being a McDonald's All-American, he got through it unscathed. But that's walking the broadcasting tightrope, but he did it.
Did he leave it on the table so that the camera shots? I know my wife, we were watching the game and we saw you and Brian, but we didn't see the big tub of popcorn. That would be awesome.
I was trying to get him to put it on the table, but he was only before the broadcast went on BTN. So no, he had it underneath. Somehow he didn't kick it over and spill popcorn all over College Park, Maryland. But we got through it.
Where do you come down? Because when you're talking for a couple hours straight, you got to keep the pipes lubricated. Where do you come down? Has anybody ever spilled a beverage courtside? Do you have to have the safety cups? What's the protocol there?
When these guys played their games at the field house, we were in that upper level, and I was a guilty party a couple times if it was a soft drink or water, and I'm on the air babbling, doing the pregame stuff. And there was one time somebody came up. Apparently I gave the dude a pretty good shower with the spilled drink, and he let me know he wasn't real happy about it. So ever since then, particularly if you're on level 2 and a mistake is going to get somebody a face full of Pepsi or Coke or whatever, you put the protective cover on. But now we haven't, probably just jinxed it. We have not had any spillage, but it's probably coming. So tune in on Saturday at Northwestern.
When I started the paper, one of the columnists, longtime columnist and friend from the Milwaukee Sentinel, Dale Hoffman, who I worked with also at the Journal Sentinel, he was notorious for that. And there's a plaque outside of the arena across from the street from the newspaper office. And it's on this site in 1840, whatever, Christopher Latham Scholes invented the typewriter. And I felt like putting a sign underneath it. And 10 minutes later, Dale spilled a Diet Coke on it. Because he was known for doing that. And like, whoops, your notes, here's all your stuff. And back in then we had those little, the early laptops,
right?
Tandy, Radio Shack jobs that all writers carried. That was bad. Anyway, we're getting off track already. Matt, that was an entertaining ball game with a less than stellar result for the Badgers, but I was all in, and if they were playing again tonight, I'd watch it again tonight.
Yeah, it was a fun game. Maryland's really on a roll right now. I think that they're coming together, all the transfers, they all seem to be in order now, lined up. Their starting 5 is really good. I think the depth will be a question for Maryland in the long run, but that starting 5 the Terps have is good. That was a good atmosphere. As much as things are changing and in college athletics and all that stuff that we've talked about endlessly, it seems, over the past couple of years, that was the first game back with the semester. The students were there in force. It was a legit big time college atmosphere. It was kind of weird. Neither team could make a layup last night, but the difference was Maryland was hitting threes at a 50% clip. And Wisconsin they couldn't finish at the rim too often, and they didn't shoot the threes the way they normally do.
There's not a lot you can do when a team gets that hot, except just watch.
Well, last night, this guy coming off the bench for Maryland, Deshaun Harris-Smith, hit a 3, so that makes him 5 for 23 this season. And then Jacoby Gillespie, really talented point guard, he took a shot. It was probably 2 or 3 feet beyond the 3-point line, just beyond the top of the circle. When he released it, I thought, damn, this thing's going to go over the backboard. He banked it in. So it's like when you're hot, you're hot. And that was what happened. Maryland just in the second half, especially, they knocked down threes they're a good 3-point shooting team. They don't rely on it. Their body of work says they don't rely on it as much as a lot of teams, including Wisconsin. But last night they were really, really good.
You can't really complain about that circumstance because the Badgers have shot the lights out against Nebraska, Iowa. Some of their big number games this year have been them draining a lot of threes.
Yeah, for sure. It was a game last night that, while everybody over there was disappointed at the result, it wasn't like they wilted. It wasn't like they were terrible. They missed a few more free throws than they normally do. They're the best free throw shooting team in the country. But they walked out of there like, okay, it's fine. You fix a couple things here and there. It sets up. Saturday is very important. It would have been anyway, but it's especially so now because they're sitting here at 6-4 at the halfway point of the Big Ten season. But I didn't notice. Sometimes you lose and there's a stench to it because you didn't play very well. They did some things pretty well last night. Just sometimes the shots won't fall enough like they will for the other guys.
It was one of those games, Matt. We were the narratives around, and when you read social media, I don't know why I still do that, but when you look at social media, the narrative's like, oh, the Badgers always good, not great. They should have won that game, and they don't have a signature win. And it's kind of the same things we were talking about with the Packers as they were on the back end of their season. Like, who have they beaten? And those wins are devalued. And then I think about it, it's like, okay, so if you beat the number one team in the country and then you lose on the road at Northwestern, which is entirely possible, does that cancel it out? Like it seems when I think about it, it's a silly narrative. It's a silly, like wins are wins. It doesn't matter who you beat or when you beat them. It's just they're in the bank and earning interest, to quote Ted Davis.
It's the nature of social media. We have angst over a regular season game, and when you get to March, who remembers what happened on January 29th? It's like you fire this guy, fire that guy, bench this guy on January 29th, and then that same guy lights it up and what happened? January what? I forget.
What?
It's the nature. It's the nature of the beast. It's a good team. It's not a great team yet. Emphasize yet. I mean, we'll just say it's not a great team, but it's a very good team. So is Maryland. Maryland was a slight favorite playing at home. Marquette's the only team to beat Maryland at Maryland, and that was mid-November. So I would imagine Maryland's a little bit better now. I think Marquette's still really good too. But everybody is vulnerable. We've seen that in college basketball. Is there a great team? Auburn could be. Bruce Pearl's got a really good team there. Obviously, Marquette at its best can play with anybody. But is there a head and shoulders? Is there a Goliath out there? I'm not sure.
Well, and the Badgers sitting where they are, I didn't expect this year. I wasn't really. I kind of went in with a blank slate going into this year because I didn't know. But from my chair, from my lazy boy, they're exceeding expectations this season, and to be where they are within, a sniff, what is it, 5th, 6th in the league? That's pretty good.
Yeah, at the halfway point. Yeah, for sure. At the halfway point, because I think they were picked 12th in the 18-team league this year, something like that. That's what I don't remember for sure because it doesn't really matter because most of the people who are doing this, we're all guessing with the roster turnover. I mean, even in the state of Wisconsin, who knew anything about John Tonje before he got here? And now he's one of the leading scorers in the Big Ten. And the same thing with Maryland, some of the guys on their roster, and you could go right down the line because of the turnover through the transfer portal. You could get veteran college players, but it might be in the Missouri Valley Conference or wherever, just a league that we don't watch a whole lot of around here, but they're really good players. So these guys, last year at the halfway point, they were 8-2. They were 8-1. They had lost a game at Nebraska to win the first half of the Big Ten regular season. And then guys started to get hurt. The lack of depth became an issue, and things went sideways in the second half of the season. So just like last night, not going to get too wound up about those guys losing. They put together a really good run. They had won 8 out of 9 going into last night's game, but it's still, let's see what February brings. I think there's more depth to absorb. If it's a slump, if it's an injury, somebody gets the flu, whatever it is, I think Greg's got some more options to turn to this year as opposed to last. But I mean, there's still half of a league season plus the conference tournament, so on and so forth.
It's like we're just around the corner from the tournament selection, and that's sneaking up on us. We were talking about that last night, my wife and I were. It's like, wow, that's like 4 weeks away, 5 weeks away. That we're looking at those conference tournaments. It's like, holy cats. Hey, I want to bounce something off you. Matt.
Sure.
Because I'm always looking to coming up with innovative and new ideas. So, they had with the Big Ten, they're adding all these teams all over the place, and no one knows how to split them up.
Mm-hmm.
So, I go, this is what I think we should do in the Big Ten. You got the original, and then you got the new ones.
Oh,
so you split it right down.
Divide by seniority.
So you got Illinois, Indiana, Iowa State, Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, rather, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, Minnesota, Purdue, and Wisconsin. That's 9 on one side. On the other side, you get Washington, USC, UCLA, Rutgers, Oregon, Nebraska, Maryland, Penn State. They were one of the last in. They went from 10 to 12. And then we'll just throw Northwestern over there because nobody really wants them anyway.
That's innovative.
I think you do it with the OGs and then the new ones.
Can we call it leaders and legends?
I was just going to ask that. Well, KB, come up with something. Give us some names for these divisions.
Next time we talk to you, I'll have it.
Leaders and legends. Mm-hmm. But to KB's point, that's on the radar, and there's going to be games in Milwaukee this year, probably not involving the Badgers, definitely not Marquette because they can't play.
They can't play here.
But are we in the dead arm phase? Are these the dog days of the college basketball season? You've been doing this a long time, Matt. The rhythm of it is changing. Like the Badgers had that week where they didn't play at all. It was like they had a long layoff. Then they had the trip to the West Coast, which is, you're playing, but you're in warm weather. It almost probably felt a little bit like a vacation. What are the dog days now in college basketball?
Is it. I've talked to Butchie about that. And yes, I just remember when you said that the words dog days, I brought that up to Bo Ryan his first year, and he starts looking at me like, huh? What? Like he didn't want to hear dog days. So I relayed that to Butchie and some other players through the years. And they said, yeah, this is dog days. Because you're still far enough away from Selection Sunday, but you're deep into the season. You got the second semester underway now. And, that light at the end of the tunnel really isn't there. You got a long way to go. So it's about just every day, push to get better. And if there are dog days in college basketball, this is part of it. But it's also where the really good teams continue to play well and get in position to play their best.
It's like the mid-July, August of baseball season.
Well, exactly. It's like Hardcourt used to say during spring training, about a month in, you got 2 weeks left before you can pack up and leave Arizona. He'd say, I have journalistic dead arm.
This is the same guy, the first pitch of the first spring training game. Will this ever end?
Yeah, won't this season ever end? The great Tom Hardcourt. Yes, journalistic dead arm. He decried that, like with 2 weeks left in camp. And it is, you get in your routine, and it's almost Groundhog Day, which is appropriate for this time of year too, because it's the same thing, and practices are, you're beating up the same guys, and you're kind of sick of practice. And the games are sweet, and the atmosphere pumps you up, but then it's the stuff in between that makes it seem long.
I do think one thing that helps alleviate that a little bit, though, is that the trip to LA. I was talking to John Blackwell and John Tanjay about that last week, and Blackwell said that's probably the best trip I've ever had, for basketball. He's a sophomore in college, but as you're growing up playing a game, you're traveling a lot. The weather was good. I know, they have the fires, but where we were, you would never have known it. There were people in the hotel who were there because they had to evacuate, but the sky over us was crystal clear, and it was in the 60s, hitting 70. They spent a lot of time together. So part of an advantage maybe of the new Big Ten, it's a longer flight than what we grew up getting used to in the Big Ten, but it broke it up a little bit. They would have loved to have won both games, but the trip itself, because you're in the big city, a lot of these guys got excited. A bunch of UFC fighters were at the first hotel these guys were at downtown. They had a UFC card, so they got a kick out of that. They saw a Lakers-Clippers game. They did a lot of different things. So if there are dog days, I think that trip probably came at a very good time for them.
Well, it's not like they're getting middle seats on the plane.
It's a pretty good play.
That's pretty good play.
Yeah, Gardo has talked about, now it's not NBA pretty or MLB pretty, but it's pretty good. And Greg Gard's been really good saying, look, man, but part of what they did out there, they went to a local food bank in LA, and they're aware of what's been going on with the fires, and it's not that bad, guys. Plus, let's be honest, they're getting paid.
There you go.
There you go.
That's true too. That's why it keeps
Good work
us
if you
going.
can get it.
It's what keeps us going. Matt, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. We will catch up with you next week. Speaking of travel, we'll be in New Orleans all next
Yep.
week. Oh, giddy up.
Behave yourself. Behave yourself down there.
Nope.
Don't
We
get
make
caught.
no guarantees.
Just don't get caught.
All right, we'll try not to. Yeah, sadly, Butchie isn't going to be part of the travel roster for this because he's got too many basketball
He
obligations.
stands out anyway. You can't do anything covert with a guy
Yeah,
with
but-
7 feet.
Butchie's on speed dial for if we need bail money, and then if he doesn't answer, we're calling you, Matt. Just
That's right.
FYI.
I've been warned. I think my
All
phone
right.
died. All right. We'll see you, boys. Take
All right,
care.
thanks, pal. Appreciate it. The voice.